Was
Here we,
good.
here we go again for another episode of
Welcome to the show, fellas and ladies. We are on our 14th episode. That was quick. Jesus Christ. We're going to be talking about maybe one day like 100th episode. Things happen fast, man. Just started this thing.
when you
So
do it every week. That's the
do it every
recipe.
week and it's fun. You do it every week and it's fun. So today we are taking guest callers. So if you have something to say, comment on our Facebook, comment on our Instagram. We are going to be talking about weight cutting strategies. And I want to hear your guys' weight cutting strategy. If you have one, if you have a weight cutting strategy, comment. And for a chance to be on the show, you guys can talk about what you guys do, especially coming up. The US Open's coming up next weekend. So be prepared for that. We are going to be cutting weight more than once on this event. So, and a lot of people I've heard a ton of different weight cutting strategies. I mean, I've heard it all, man. I've seen it all. I've done it old school. And, I'm thinking that old school is kind of a very dated way of doing weight cuts. Very dangerous. We've had many deaths in the past doing that. We've had performance issues. And as a coach myself, I've even have my own athletes, get very sick, pass out in the sauna. And so, again, I want to see what you guys have to say. If you guys have a weight cutting strategy that you want to share with us, I'd love to hear it. But I'll tell you a little bit of my own. So last year, the US Open on the fall, I decided that I wanted to do a little test group with my own athletes on getting them to get to their weight in a safe way. And so I had them take metabolic, like a caloric burn rate test, a VO2 max test. And the VO2 max basically gives you all of these metrics, how, where your calories are burnt and what type of calories they are, so to speak. So at some point, when you are, let's say you are running, quite slow, you'll be burning pretty much fat because it's an efficient way, and it's a long lasting way of getting energy to your cells, to your muscles. But if I'm going really, really hard, let's say I'm wearing it out in the ring, and my heart rate's well up, next to my max, fat doesn't metabolize fast enough to get to your muscles. And so what happens is your body produces, or your body uses glycogen, uses sugar. And so, so if you are running super hard every day trying to burn fat, you're probably going to fail. You're going to be in really good shape, but you're going to fail, right?
Do you think that's anything like, Tiago, when on a diesel car or truck, I used to have to turn on the key a couple seconds before you cranked it up because it wouldn't start unless it heated? There's the heat plugs or whatever they're called. Sorry, diesel folks, but I know that it's like you got to preheat it before it actually will fire.
All the non-car folks are like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Well, but there's some car folks out there.
But I mean, our bodies work like cars, right? And so, but there's certain vehicles that are half and half, right? So let's talk about like maybe I wouldn't say a Tesla. I would say maybe
more like a hybrid. Our bodies,
like a hybrid, right? And so, and when a hybrid's not working too hard, when a hybrid's just chugging along, it's using very, very little bit of fuel, using a lot of the battery. And then you're going to say like maybe the battery is like burning fat, because we want to use mostly the battery, right? We don't want to use fuel. Well, fuel, gas in a hybrid gives you readily available energy at a high rate, very high rate. So as soon as that, I start going real hard, I fucking rev that engine, I want to go. Guess what? We're not using that battery anymore. We're using some of the battery, but we're using most we're using most of the gasoline, right? And that would be glycogen, sugar. Problem with that is you only have so much in your tank, which fits the analogy, right? The battery can, it kind of long lasting, right? The wheels kind of recharge it, the coasting recharges it, like a lot of things recharge that battery. But once you're out of gasoline, I don't care how much battery you have, you're done, right? That's how a hybrid works. It does work on fuel and on gasoline, right? And so it's the same thing with sugar. If I'm running super hard for a long period of time, eventually you run out. And the formula is real simple. You burn about sometimes 1,000 calories an hour if you're going super hard. Some people can burn 1,000 calories an hour, but you can only absorb, most people, right? There's some freaks of nature out there, but the majority of the population only absorbs about 300 calories of glycogen an hour. So if you do the math, you're burning 1,000 and you only can absorb 300 an hour. Eventually you're going to run out of gas, right? So that's the thing, is you got to start learning and teaching your body through, the right kind of cardio and stuff. So I started doing that, the thing where I'm like, all right, the VO2 tells you exactly at what heart rate you start burning glycogen, what heart rate you start burning fat. Exactly. 157 beats per minute, you will start burning sugar. Do not run above that when you run for weight cut, right? Don't run above it. Keep it below. And so that helped a lot. I had a team of 16 last tournament, and all of them did not cut, made weight with ease, both weight cuts, and did not cut more than 2 hours. Did not cut more than 2 hours. So it was quite the experience. I actually worked better than I thought it would. And I was really pleased with it. And now it's pretty much standard in our gym. Is now we don't do old school cutting. As a matter of fact, there's a percentage of body fat that I use, a formula. They weigh in every Monday at the exact same time for 7 weeks straight. And if I don't see the trajectory in the right direction, I move them up in weight class long before bracket consolidation. So when I see that my athlete has 15% of body fat to lose, I'm not comfortable with that number. The most I will allow for an adult is 8 pounds. My comfortable number is, or 8%, excuse me. My comfortable number is 5%. I want, especially with the two weight thing. So let's say I have a kid, I have a guy at 200 pounds. That's his weight limit, right? And 20% of his weight, 20% or 10%, let's say, would be 20 pounds, right? It would be 20 pounds. Imagine that guy now has to drop 20 pounds. Now, for someone that's 200, that's not that much. It's depending on muscle mass, depending on, if they have a large muscle mass, they hold a lot more water than someone my size would. So I go on body percentage. Now, a comfortable weight cut for a 200 pounder, I would like to say, is within 5 pounds. 200 pounder can fluctuate 10 pounds in a workout very easily. They sweat it all out. It's not difficult for them to lose. And that formula held up when I did my that experiment with my athletes. Everybody was within 5 pounds, didn't cut more than 1 hour. They actually sat in the sauna, and one of them made weight by accident, shadowboxing. He didn't even have to sit in the sauna. So 5% is the magic number. He made weight both times with ease. Very, very easy. I had him running one long run in the week, over an hour and a half at their fat burning zone 2. I had them going super, super hard on track once a week. So to get their max heart rate, to be able to hold that max heart rate for a long period of time in the ring, so they don't get tired in the ring. And And I mean, it just worked. And then with an obvious diet, right? And that's, I'm not going to go into the details of that. You're going to have to figure that out on your own, coaches. But they had, everybody had their own caloric burn rate that was different. And I kind of sat down after the VO2 and I designed a diet for them that, especially if I knew their data, I can just go in and tell you, hey, you know what? You basically burn pure sugar. You don't even burn fat. So we're going to do X, Y, and Z. We're going to run a very specific way. We're going to do things very specific. If you're just joining us, we're talking about weight cut strategies. And I would like to hear from you guys. I would like to hear if anybody's in the comments. I would like to hear from you guys about what is your weight cut strategy? What is your, how do you get your weight down? As a matter of fact, I know that Brandon, how many pounds have you lost so far, Brandon, from the last year?
I mean, if I was gonna be, honest, it was up to about 65, but I've fluctuated another about 10 pounds in the other direction recently. But
Holy shit, pounds.
yeah,
That's a
65.
small human. That's a
Yeah.
lot of weight, bro. Good for you. Congratulations. What did you do?
I love to train Muay Thai, but obviously as we get older, have some things happen and people some know, like I hurt my back, when we were moving some equipment not too long ago, and just through a kink and me being able to practice Muay Thai like I'd like to. So I switched to more of like a calisthenic type of since I travel a lot and move around a lot, and the excuses to not get into the gym, right? It's 15-minute drive there, 20-minute drive back. Time is a big deal in my life. So I wanted to find something I could do at my house that didn't require any extra equipment, so that way if I was traveling in the hotel, I could keep up my regimen no matter where I was at without needing a trip to the gym or whatever. So mostly that, sticking to an app. It's a pretty simple to follow calisthenic type application that sends me a push notification every morning and says, don't miss out your progress today.
Yeah.
And, kind of just reiterates to keep after it. And then the diet, of course, changing the way I was eating, learning, a lot of my life, I'd found like tricks to get around, or you just eat the same thing. And like the meal prep people, they'll eat the same thing all the time. For me, that just wasn't working out long term. So I wanted to reprogram myself on learning how to cook healthy, learning how to cook foods that were good for you. So on my own, I can walk through a grocery store and pick a good grain, pick the right, amount of protein for a meal and stuff like that. And so now, I mean, I've turned into quite the healthy chef over the last, year and a half, 2 years. And I really like it. I really enjoy it. I'm a foodie. I like food, but this also allows me to get creative in my meals that I'm cooking. And so it's been a good way to stick with it. But yeah.
Well, congratulations on dropping that much weight. That's a huge feat. It's visibly noticeable, and you move around a lot better. I noticed you're taking up some sports, taking up golf, and probably changes a lot.
Going from a yoga mat, laying, going to ER for sciatic pain and like all the things. I mean, it gets pretty bad, real quick. And, now I was out in the snow doing skiing with Claudia, and, just doing things I wouldn't have been able to do a few years ago. So yeah, life transformational diet is.
So it sounds like they had you doing some kind of calisthenics, and some kind of like weight training to get your metabolic rate or your caloric rate to increase, right? So the higher muscle mass you have, the more you burn. So you think about like in the cars, like we're gonna go back to the car analogy.
Good.
It's a larger engine, right? So the more muscle you have, that's what I call muscle cars. The more muscle you have, the more fuel you burn, straight up. And so if you are able to increase your metabolic rate through strength training, you're able to burn the fat quicker. It's just that simple, right? Some of my bigger guys, my higher density muscle guys will, I mean, they burn at an insane rate. I have one guy that's like 1,600 calories an hour. It's a freaking insane caloric load.
Wow.
But you know, the guy is a tank, right? It's 170 pounds. Like, you just pull the skin off of him. It's just skin and muscle, right? And so, but he has very dense muscle mass. He's constantly hungry. I don't blame him, right? He's a big engine. He's a big engine. It's constantly burning fuel, even at rest. It's burning fuel, and so you know you want to make sure that um, that you're doing that. So it's not just cardio to burn fat, but you actually have to do strength training. You have to actually build some of your muscle. And it's kind of cool. Those VO2 tests are, you know, a little expensive, but they tell you they take the guesswork out of everything. You could basically do some simple math after you know what your caloric burn rate is, and you can eat exactly enough that you know that at the end of the day, I burned 1,200 calories and I ate 1,000. And over
Let's throw Ryan in the mix here. So Ryan, recently, you just completed one of these, right? Like, so this is fresh on the brain for you.
That's right.
Tell us,
I
like,
did
what was the experience doing the VO2 testing?
so did a VO2, what is that, like 3 days ago? 3, 4 days ago now?
yeah, Friday, Saturday.
Saturday. You know, it's a test that takes about 10 minutes on a treadmill. And you know, the idea is to see what your max heart rate is and also to get some metrics. You're going to wear a mask and it's going to have a tube and it's going to be attached to a machine and that's going to be able to detect what you're breathing out and you know the volume of oxygen, your carbon dioxide levels. You get a lot of really cool data out of it, and you get a really good profile of your health. And the VO2 max test came about from the Cooper Institute, which was this is like 50, 60 years old worth of research to pretty much determine uh, what a healthy person should look like. And if you've ever done any kind of Cooper standard test, like if you're in the military, you might have done a Cooper test. This is where that term has come from, where you do a mile and a half run. And depending on your time, it's different for men and women. But depending on your time, you're graded on your fitness level. So if you're able to run that mile and a half, let's say if you're in the age of you're 30 years old, if you're able to run it in 12 and a half minutes, you know, you're considered, you know, within the 70th percentile or something like that. And that's a like objective measure of your fitness. And interestingly enough, if you guys do any more research about this, the Cooper test has been like a very, very strong predictor of life expectancy. So if you're able to kind of stay with those standards and keep yourself in shape that you can beat those Cooper standards, that has been a big predictor of your life expectancy. So this is all stuff that probably should be done at an annual checkup. Like American medicine sucks. You know, you show up to a doctor, they don't even know your
No,
name.
I'm just kidding.
They stick a
Get
finger
you-
in your butt and they say you
yeah,
don't
they
have
don't even,
to,
you
and
know,
that's
barely you gotta beg them to do something. You have to beg them, you know,
I'm
please take
actually looking
blood.
forward to AI coming into medicine, so it'll get it right all the time pretty soon.
So you know, we don't do this. You know, they kick you out. And they don't give you really any advice. They don't give you any. They don't ask you, hey man, like what do you want to do with your life? You know, how are things going? How do you feel? You know, how's your mobility? They don't ask you these types of questions. You know, if you're not bringing it up to a doctor or bringing it up to a specialist, it just doesn't get discussed. So like these type of tests you're doing, you know, is not very common in the Muay Thai scene. You know, but you have a background. You know, you went to school for sports medicine and these types of things. So you know you're bringing a very very different approach to weight cutting. And one thing that you've done is you don't just rely on some of the folklore that's out there about what to do. You've actually brought in experts into your gym and consultants so that you can have like a more well-rounded approach on how
Balance.
to safely cut weight. So it's not only just you know you're looking on the inside, but you brought in nutrition people things like that, to talk about the diet side of things and mental health side of things. So talk a little bit about like some your, the other things you're doing to make this a complete package.
Well, I brought in it's not a secret that I compete in endurance sports and then triathlons. I do swimming, I do running, right, and I cycle quite a bit. Right now, I've been cycling since we were high schoolers, and this data wasn't really well known out there, and so once I started, again, I started in my early 30s again, started doing like endurance sports. I hired a coach. I had an endurance coach. This is a very elite coach. We had him as a guest. His name is Timothy Boland. And I started, I actually had a really horrible marathon. I had probably the most horrendous marathon as my first marathon. If you don't know what a marathon is, running 26 miles straight. And I thought I was hot shit, and I started running super fast, and I thought I was going to be elite, and I failed miserably. It was an awful, probably one of the most second or first most painful races I've ever done. It was awful. Lots of pain, lots of getting sick. I finished it, but it was awful. So then I was like, you know what? I need help. I need to understand how these people are able to run at this pace, because there's got to be experts out there that know what to do. And so I hired Tim, and then I started learning about how the cardiovascular system works at an elite level, and how are these people able to run 4 to 5 minute miles for 26 miles. How is the nutrition done? Well, what are they eating to do that? How are they training to get their heart rate to stay low and sprint essentially for 26 miles? They're a freaking sprint. They're running 13 miles an hour, 12 miles an hour. It's out of control. Actually, the world record is 13 mile an hour average run. That's people bike that and die from exhaustion. Forget about running. So how does this happen, right? And so Tim started teaching me about that and learning about my heart rate zones and what kind of nutrition I need, and how often I started going to seminars on extreme endurance sports, and what to eat and how to eat, how frequently to eat, how your body absorbs salt, how they absorb sugar, how they absorb water, how the environment around you affects your absorption rate. So you might not even absorb everything you eat if you're too hot or too cold. If you're not well rested, your absorption rate drops. So all those things I started learning about. And then I brought in, we actually, Ryan and I partnered on a plant-based restaurant and meal prep company. And we started learning, bringing in Will Plantius, and he's a good friend of ours. And he taught us about, nutrition and, working with, plant-based meals and understanding why that works really well. And so we brought all these people in, and I started learning, I started taking from each of that. All these people had a lot of real knowledge to bring in. And I sat down and I wrote a little book on how I would like to do weight cuts from here on out. And it was an awful, before I knew all of this, I hated the experience of weight cutting. I hated it.
Sounds like torture.
It's actually, a lot of people call that the fight. The weight cut is the fight. The fight is just the fun part after the weight cut. But the weight cut is the fight. And if you don't know what you're doing with your body, you're saying, I've heard of people like overhydrating. Oh my God, I can't even imagine what that does to your kidneys. Overhydrating, that's actually very dangerous. They'll do distilled water. I've heard that. They'll do distilled water so that it just pours out of you when it's time to dehydrate. Oh my God, there's so many crazy things. So people just be like, oh, I'll just sleep in my sauna suit. Or I start cutting weight 3 days early. And I'm like, holy cow. And now knowing what I know, it's kind of like scary to hear those things. And I'm not surprised that people die. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm not surprised because that's what people know. That's all they know. They know what their coach taught them. That's what my coach taught them, and that's not his fault. It's just there was no information out there about that. There was no Google back then. That's how old I am. There was no Google or a phone, or there was nothing out there. You'd have to go to a university to find these things out. And now the information is readily available. You can look these things up.
Well, even that, I'll actually add that before we started this episode, while we were doing some work, I used ChatGPT to create, a scenario of weight cutting for a Muay Thai athlete before a tournament.
What is it?
Well, I don't know. It's pretty lengthy. I don't know that I would go into all of it. And you actually
go into
covered
some of the highlights.
a ton. Well, what I was going to talk to you right now was about number 19 on the list of 20 things was still consult professionals. So even though this is AI
knows
even though it grabbed everything else, it still says, if you're unsure, you should be, talking to a sports medicine professional. So, even though, not to say anything wrong about any coaches they probably do the best they can do, but if they're not, if they don't understand, something and they're going by what they were told, that's tough, but you learn, this is how we learn, is by, seeing people almost die from liver damage or damage to organs because of bad weight cutting. And
heart failure.
But to touch on some, that it's funny because number one was start early, right? You covered that about your 7 weeks.
7 weeks out, we start weight checks.
Number two was set realistic goals. So basically make sure determine how much weight you need to cut and set achievable goals for each week leading up to the tournament. Number three was a clean diet. Another variant said a balanced diet. So focus on clean eating, whole foods, lean protein, complex carbs, healthy fats, avoid processed foods, sugary snacks, excessive sodium, which can cause water retention. So then you had hydration, stay properly hydrated throughout the training camp. That's probably one that not everybody follows too closely because they're trying to stay underweight and they think the water
it's really the worst thing you can do because so you need to be, and that's a good point, you need to stay very well hydrated throughout your entire camp to prepare for the abuse you're going to put to your body. So think about I'm going to dehydrate, right? We want to minimize the amount of time my body's dehydrated. For some people, they're like, I'm going to hit the sauna. And I was one of those people, by the way. I'm going to hit the sauna every week to prepare for wake up. And that was dead wrong. That was not a smart decision, but I didn't know any better. And so
Teresa adds that to your comment. There's too much access to knowledge to still go by. That's how it's always been done.
I agree. But there's a lot of people out there who don't even still know how to use their phones. But I agree with Teresa is that there is a lot of knowledge. But the problem is it backfires. There's too much knowledge, and now they don't know which one to pick. And so that's what they're like, well, what's the real one? What's the one? Should I overhydrate with distilled water? Should I just eat meat? Oh man, that's the best.
Well, and let's add ChatGPT into that too, because number 6 says increase cardio, even though I told it it's for a Muay Thai tournament.
Yeah,
cardio,
absolutely.
But absolutely. You're doing that part of the sport, the training camp. You're increasing your cardio.
They're running probably about 12 miles a week, I would say, depending on pace, because it's mostly time, right? I want to do half an hour of running, maybe very, very slow running prior to training, just to get the heart rate up and start the fat burning process. Right? Every day. Just a light run, nothing too difficult. They should be able to have a conversation right before. And that's what the Thais do, actually. It's a telltale. They run 10K every single weekday. 10K, 6 miles every day, but they run it slow as hell. They're just jogging around. They're slowly running around in the park at about 5 a.m. And that's why they stay lean. Then they
Jumping
eat,
over water
by the way,
monitors, as we
they
discussed.
eat a lot. They eat
Yeah, all
constantly.
day. Mhm.
They're not, and they're eating freshly made cooked food, right? They're eating constantly fresh foods. So all of these things, like they've been doing this for a long time, unknowingly the right thing.
So
The
that's
only
number 10 here in the Chat GPT special of
There you
weight
go.
cutting is meal timing. Paying attention to when you eat your meals and snacks, eating smaller, more frequent meals throughout the day can help
Absolutely.
you keep your metabolism revved up and
Yep.
prevent overeating.
So here's why that is important, right? So when so you can only absorb about 300 calories an hour. So if I'm engorging in the middle of the night, right, I'm just stuffing my face 6, 7, 800 calories in one meal. Guess what I actually absorbed in sugar? 300. The rest of it metabolizes into fat, and it just goes right through you, right? And so are you really getting all of the replenishment? Are you really getting all the fuel you need? Yeah, but you're getting excessive amount. So it doesn't really lead to weight loss, especially right before going to sleep. Having a big breakfast is something that's a telltale. It's you fuel up in fats and sugars, and in protein big in the morning because your body's is getting ready for the day, about to burn quite a bit of fuel. It's just like filling up your tank filling up your gas tank before your commute, right? I'm gonna fill because I know I'm gonna burn it, right? I'm gonna burn it right away, and so you eat big and you taper as your day goes on. And you taper your meal as your day goes on, and I keep it to 250 calories meals. So basically, your hand, right? Palm of your hand meal is enough. A lot of people, especially like they talk about like, oh, you got to finish your plate and you got to eat everything that's on your plate. That's actually not a good
No,
practice,
that's actually how some of us got to having weight issues to begin
right?
with, because that was,
You-
from Great Depression era, stuff that lived on third generation out,
Yeah, I mean, so it's not even when I talk to my kids, when they tell me they're full, I'm like, okay, cool, like
Mhm.
put it away. Let's put it away, and then when you feel hungry again, that's fine. But eat till you're satisfied, not eat till you're full. That's a big mistake. If you're full, you overate already. You should feel satisfied. You shouldn't be getting up and that's already way too much food. You ate way too much calories, and it's not beneficial to your health. And so all of these things, yes, smaller meals, more frequent meals, increase your metabolic rate. Absolutely, you're absorbing those calories and you're able to use them. It's really it's. I mean, Chat GPT got it pretty down.
Well, check this out. So I'll rip through a few more of these because you're already covering some of them too. Here's one at number 9 was gradual reduction. So that's saying to aim to lose no more than 1 to 2 pounds per week.
That is
To ensure
absolutely.
that weight loss is sustainable and doesn't negatively impact your performance.
So my that was great. So I will go into more detail with that. So instead of 1 to 2 pounds, it depends on the person. So I go by percentage of weight, and you shouldn't be losing more than 1%. So in 7 weeks, that's 7% of actual body weight. I'm not talking about dehydration. I'm talking about actual body weight. So let's say 200, and your goal is to fight at 180, right? So 10 pounds, you're gonna burn 5% of your actual body weight. That's a very attainable goal in 7 weeks. You actually can burn a little more. So if they burn about 10 pounds and they have 10 pounds at 190, they're still in the 5% range for me. They're gonna make weight like easy can be, right? They're gonna make 180 easily.
What
Right?
is it? 1 pound equal to like 2,800 calories or something like that. There's like an equivalence to
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on the type of calorie, but absolutely. And so that's the thing. You have very easy math that you can kind of attain to. And so I make them weigh in every week, and I can see. I actually have a very specific spreadsheet where you can see every week the percentage of body fat that they have burned or that is left over.
And so
And
that's ChatGPT's number 8. Monitor weight regularly.
So at the same time, every week we do that. I sit down and I will check that every week. As a matter of fact, we do it every Monday. And so there was a comment on here that said, never again will I crash cut. Killed 7 pounds driving to US Open 2019. Worst performance ever.
Wow.
7 pounds. I wonder what is this OT?
What their fight weight was.
I wonder what his fight weight was for 7
that's what
pounds.
I was wondering too.
If you can comment on that, what was your fight weight for your your tournament in 2019?
Yeah, what division?
I'm gonna guess he was probably in the lower weight class for 7 pound cut. He's definitely not 200.
So that would lead into like here it's 13 and 14 on this list is sauna sessions and sweatsuits or plastic wrap. So
yes.
is that incorporated in pretty much everybody's weight?
Yeah, I mean it's just a matter of preference. It's all sweating, right? And everybody has their own dehydration. I call it dehydration because that's exactly what it is. They have their own method.
They call it a final water cut here.
It's a water cut, yeah. And so you can either jog with a sauna suit, get your heart rate up. You can sit in a sauna suit to save your legs for competition. Some people do a bike and airdyne to just kind of move the bike. I've seen people just sit in a jacuzzi. I have done what we call a hot box at hotels. So what I'll do is I will create a steam room in the hotels because we don't have any steam room around. So I'll cover the bottom of the doorway with towels and put on the water as hot as I possibly can go.
In the bathroom?
In the bathroom, in the hotel bathroom. And we've cut, in an hour, cut 6-7 pounds in there. And then just walk downstairs to weigh in. Done that many times. So sitting in a steam room, sitting in a sauna. The main thing is just to get to a point where it's a comfortable weight cut so that you can perform the next day. And the longer you're dehydrated, the worse the performance.
Well, the looks like the point is to reduce your water intake a little bit during that as well, so that but not becoming dehydrated, you're saying, right? So you want to keep like an optimal level where you're not, so you're cutting water, so you don't want to be taking in water,
so you don't want to take
water.
So what I do is we do ice chips, so they just kind of crunch on ice chips and spit. I've even had one guy just spit on a car ride a full bottle of water, a chew gum, and he spit about 1 pound of saliva.
Wow.
I was like, I don't want to see that shit. He would jiggle it like, oh, look at this. I was like, fuck, man, get out of here with that shit. But there is, so many things that you could do for weight cut, but essentially do your research. There are a lot of different methods, some healthier than others. Just make sure that that whatever method you take, you research the side effects, right? And just do the best you can to start early. A lot of these max, these huge hydrations like OT J Moore did is dangerous. And we actually had one athlete have a massive weight cut once and almost lose his life because he competed completely dehydrated. And that was a choice that he made. It was a scary choice, but it was a choice that he made. And, we don't, condone that. We actually have the second weigh-in to discourage massive weight cuts. We want to discourage it. And it's a very hard cut. So if you try to come in, I'm 0.1 over, you're disqualified. So don't come in. I don't care if it's 0.1 or 0.05 over. I don't care. Come in comfortably underweight. Don't pick a weight that's difficult to make to a point where you almost can't perform, to a point where you're risking your health. That's the reason why. Ideally, I'd like to have daily weight cut. If we ever move to a 4-day event, we're most likely going to do a daily weight check. I would love to do a daily weight check because, and then people won't cut absurd amounts of weight. Do your research. I'm always open to help people cutting weight because I want healthy athletes competing. I don't want unhealthy athletes competing. So if you guys have any questions at the tournament and you want to know about some of the methods, and I will happily come up and share my knowledge with you. I'd love to see what you guys have to say on the comments on what you guys do to cut weight, how you drop weight. And yeah, I mean, I want to conclude here with, just be safe out there. I look forward to seeing all of you guys at the US Open next week. Make sure that you have your medicals. Make sure that if you are 36 and up, we do have extra medicals if you haven't heard about it. So that was a new thing that commission passed to make sure that people aren't getting heart attacks and aneurysms at our tournament. Especially during a weight cut. So they do, some special tests that they require, and it's good for the rest of the year. So if you're interested, if you want to know about that, just go on our website, usmuaythaiopen.com. We're looking to have a really fun tournament this year. It's shaking up to be something really cool. And we look forward to seeing everybody there. Have a safe weight cut, have a safe travel. And, so you can kick some ass at the tournament.
Look forward to seeing everybody for sure.
All right, guys. I want you guys to have a great day. I'll see you next week.
Choke the cop.
Peacock.